Hi, Darren. Hey, George. Thanks for joining.
Hey, how are you?
You look great.
You you know that of course I just wore a bike helmet for 30 minutes. So
Uh, what is your general biking radius?
um what do you mean? Where do I typically ride?
Yeah, where at what point would you say I'm going to drive?
Oh, I see. Um well, it's an e-bike, so
Oh,
I can go pretty far. I've gone down to Springville and back for meetings. Um and I've gone all the way to American Fork Hospital for a doctor's appointment. So, it's pretty reliable at a very high speed for 15 miles, and very reliable at lower speeds for 25 to 35. So,
hmm, that's great. Sounds like you go places you would not go with just a pedal bike.
oh yeah, I mean, I used to be hardcore, and I would ride to my haircut on my, you know, normal road bike, and I would show up super sweaty, and it was kind of gross, and they tolerated it, but um, this way I can get to meetings at all times of the year, and I'm not out of breath and sweaty and you know gross.
Yeah, that's really nice. Michaela, are you running the Ryan Clark Zoom today?
I'm gonna pull up, see if I can find that report that I was talking about, or our plan.
Okay.
Not sure the plan is updated online, but let me just see if I can.
Hello, Paul.
Hmm.
Hi, Quinn.
Hey, there he is in the flesh.
Huh.
UVU Celebrity of the Week.
Oh, yeah. I'm just glad it turned out pretty well.
That's really nice.
Thank you. Sorry, I'm a few minutes late. My computer decided it needed to do all the updates on Zoom.
You're on time as far as I'm concerned.
Oh, thank you.
Um, I remember hearing that from Hillary and from Sarah that they were both traveling. I think Sarah was heading to Salt Lake at this time. But she was going to try to join us if she could. And Paul, where are you?
I'm just home, but
Oh,
Heidi is participating in a uh let's see, I forget what it's called, but it's like Provo Girls or something like that, and it's chance for women, professional women, to talk to 8 to 14-year-old young women about careers and all kinds of stuff. So she's running a booth down in Provo, and so I'm on primary childcare.
no, that's good. Thank you for being here. Appreciate that.
Of course.
Uh, Did you recall if Hillary and Sarah were both going to be able to make it today?
What I remember was Hillary saying that she was going to be traveling and probably would not make it.
Okay.
Was my memory.
Yeah, I'm looking back through the text and it appears that she was not sure she'd make it. And I think Sarah said that she was going to try, but that she'd be in the car. So, George, you get us in kind of an unusual week, but we really appreciate you taking some time with us.
Sure.
We usually also have Matt Taylor, who's our long-term planner.
I know Matt. Yeah.
Yeah, he works in Provo, right?
Yeah, it didn't overlap with my time, but I've, met him and talked with him a number of times.
Okay, oh good. Looks like Sarah says she's trying to come on in.
Yeah.
And then Michaela, I didn't hear. Are you running our Zoom today? I'm not getting any sound from you.
How about now?
We can hear you a little bit. Yeah.
Faintly.
Are you in the office? And if so, do you know if Matt will be joining us? All right, great. Looks like she is in the office. And then George, while we're waiting to get started, just want to make sure you know everybody on our committee. You of course know Darren because you text him about mountain biking on a regular basis.
I've heard of Darren, yeah.
The text you sent to Darren today seemed plausible in our conversation, so I just responded.
The text I sent to you, Darren, that said I could go a little later, showed up to Quinn, and he was like, "Well, you can come whenever you want."
I don't know if you've met Paul Dunn.
I haven't.
Paul, would you introduce yourself a little bit?
Sure. So I live in Orem and I teach at UVU, and my background is in ecology, which overlaps with natural resources and that sort of stuff. So I'm very interested in active transportation and water quality and all that fun stuff.
Nice. Yeah, good to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
Are you related to the Paul Dunn?
No.
No. You probably get asked that a lot. He performed my wedding. That's the only reason I asked.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I used to get asked that a lot more, I think.
Yeah, well, he's kind of faded from, yeah, he's not a household name anymore, but.
Yeah.
Okay, Michaela, we're going to jump in if it's all right and call this meeting to order. We'll hope that Hillary can join us. As you can see, we got a message that Matt had to leave early today, so he won't be joining us, unfortunately. But Michaela, maybe you can help us with some of the things that Matt had mentioned in an email today. George, I think we'll move our agenda around a little bit so that you can speak to us first. And you don't have to be here the whole time. And then we have a number of other things to cover, including getting ready for our parade of Xeriscaping, just coming up this Saturday. I'm excited about that. So George Handley is part of the municipal council in Provo and has been very active in helping to lead Provo on issues of environmental sustainability and has been around the block a couple of times to understand some of the things that may be working better than other things. And so, George, you're one of a number of people, but a very distinguished one of them that we bring in once in a while to try to learn from and try to make sure that we understand best practices and what other people are doing, so that we are not reinventing the wheel every time we try something new. So I've invited George to just share a little bit about Provo's sustainability plan and anything else you'd like to share, George, in terms of reflections on what you're proud of that Provo's been doing well, challenges that you've had, things that you're working on right now, that we might be able to understand a little bit more about your context. And then at some point, we will actually have your city staffer who works on sustainability issues also come visit, and you provide a lens through that. So don't feel like you have to play that role necessarily, but would love to hear what you have to say. I think we can go at least until 30 past the hour or more if the discussion continues, before we will need to transition to our other agenda items.
Okay, great. Yeah, I'm glad you'll be hearing from Hannah. I think she'll be able to give you a different and more administrative side perspective of the same issues that I can talk to you about. But I mean, Darren's well aware of some of this, and I think Quinn, you probably are as well. But you know, this goes all the way back to 2011 when John Curtis was mayor, and Don Jarvis, a citizen here, convinced the mayor to create a sustainability and natural resources committee that yours, I think, is somewhat modeled after. I don't know how different it is exactly, but it was sort of a citizens advisory group. I was on that early on, and you know, we had people like Paul who had a lot of expertise, and we were able to make recommendations to the mayor. And back in those years, he was, you know, open but very cautious and very careful about not doing anything too aggressive. But every time we promoted anything, whether it was an anti-idling campaign or biking or whatever, he would be right there with us. He would, you know, get on his bike and bike in front of the citizens, or he would go out to the curbside at the high schools and promote anti-idling. And so we really had great support from the mayor's office. And at that point, I didn't have any interaction with the council. But when I was elected, the sustainability committee continued under Mayor Kafusi with her support, and Don Jarvis, you know, continued to meet regularly, not only with that committee, but he would have regular meetings with, he wanted regular meetings with the mayor herself. He had those with Mayor Curtis, and she, I think, you know, for a variety of reasons and pressures on her time and so on, said, well, why don't you meet with the deputy mayor, Isaac Paxman, and I'll try to make it when I can. And I went to those meetings regularly. So that was kind of an interesting development where as a city council member. So as a city council member, we would spend once a month, just an hour. Don was like super efficient with his agenda, and we would just knock through, what is the sustainability committee talking about? What's the city council talking about? And Don always had his eyes and ears open for anything going on, or any new developments in technology, or any policies that the state was contemplating, to make us all keep us all on our toes, basically, and help us coordinate. And it was in that set of meetings where we hatched the idea of a sustainability coordinator for the city. I brought that idea back to the council, and the sustainability committee supported that as well. And it was a hard sell. I think it kind of failed the first time we proposed it. And then a year later, what we did is we proposed a half-time position that would be charged with, you know, hopefully getting grants for the city and pay for itself, you know, given the modest amount of funding that was going to take. And what the planning department agreed to do was to let one of their planners give half of his time to sustainability. And this was a guy named Austin Taylor. I don't know if you would have interacted with him, but he was very, very knowledgeable about sustainability and was for the first several well, he was only in the position, I think, for about 2 years, and he just was consistently giving us legislative ideas. He was combing over our code and finding all kinds of problems with it, like in terms of, requirements about lawn strips or requirements about permeable or impermeable surfaces and driveways and things that he knew could be useful for the city. So he mopped up a lot of our code with just some really simple fixes, which were really great. He was a little too, to be frank, he was probably a little too brash and he was very politically active in the community, and he got involved in one of those really ugly demonstrations in 2020. And so he kind of got pushed out, and we lost him. But when we lost him, and I'll be honest, we've had to protect that. I've had to personally, with Don Jarvis's help, protect that position, because there've been a couple of moments where I thought it was just going to vanish. But they sort of put it on the shoulders of another planner. And I was, at that point, we had agreed to have a full-time sustainability person. And but there was still some debate about how much we could afford that, and so we just sort of compromised again on a planner who was half-time sustainability, and eventually that got onto Hannah's shoulders, because the second guy left. And Hannah really has a tremendous disposition and capacity to listen and to build consensus patiently. She really got buy-in from department heads, so that, and so I'm giving sort of an accelerated version of the history, but then we knew it was time for us to put together a new general plan. And so we proposed, a few of us on the council proposed to put together a sustainability plan, which is what we were calling it at the time, that would be an appendix to the general plan. And when we realized we needed to hire a consultant to help us put together the general plan, because it just takes too long and we were way far behind on it, and we really wanted it to be professional and very sleek and thin. And we didn't want it to be, the one we had was just super bloated. It had lots and lots of citizen input, but it was kind of incoherent, and you could pick any line. It was like worse than the Bible. You could pick any chapter and verse from it to justify just about any policy you wanted. And so we went to a consulting firm, and we appropriated funding to pay for the general plan to be drafted by this firm. And then of course we would workshop it and, approve what we wanted. But this would give us a faster, more expedited process and more professional process. But we also voted for $300,000 to pay for 3 appendices to that general plan. One was what we now call conservation and resiliency plan. One was a foothills and canyons plan, which we're getting close to finalizing, a river and lake plan. So we haven't gotten to we're just barely starting that one now. So we finished and that it's a long saga of how ridiculously long it ended up taking anyway. Even though we hired consultants, there was a lot of politics about, as there usually are about lots of things. And part of the problem was the general plan got posted for the public with a draft of the sustainability plan, for which it wasn't ready for public viewing. But the public went in and saw the general plan and saw all this environmental stuff, and they were like, this is the Provo City Council has gone way too green. This is way too, and there's too much sustainability, and there's all these words in there we don't like. And so that slowed down the whole general plan, ironically, because we had to go in and, you know, pull out a lot of stuff from the general plan to appease some of these criticisms. But meanwhile, the draft was just sitting there waiting for the general plan to be approved so that we could turn to that. And I would say, you know, I said it at the time when we approved the conservation and resiliency plan, that it was the most important thing I think I've done on the council, and I would stand by that. And the most important thing about it is that I think it has teeth, in the sense that it has implementation plans. It's not just, you know, a lot of ideals. It's got a lot of practical implementation steps, some of which are short range, mid range, and long range. And there are also some of which are less expensive and some of which would be more expensive. And we have buy-in from all the department heads. Like, all the department heads that pertain to any one of the chapters approved the goals that are in there. So this was not a case of the council telling, you know, Parks and Rec that they should do X, Y, or Z, or Public Works that they should do X, Y, or Z. Although, as you might imagine, there has been a little bit of tug of war over some of the specifics. The energy department, I would say energy and Parks and Rec were 100% behind us. Public Works less so, but they've come around. We had a city engineer who was a long time city engineer, who was very, very car centric and very difficult to work with when it came to active transportation, mass transit, and biking. And so he retired, and we hired a new engineer, and we pleaded with the mayor enough that I got on the hiring committee to say, we need a city engineer who really gets kind of, you know, smart growth and building for the future. And we got one, and he's been incredible. He's, you know, a good friend of the Bike Walk Provo people. He's a good friend of, he's very friendly to any citizens who come to him with concerns. And he really wants us to have that infrastructure that we need. So we're in a great position now. We've got that plan approved. You know, like all plans, it's not binding. It's not, you know, but it does make it difficult for a council to go in a completely different direction. And I've posted a link in the chat to it. You can see all the goals with water, energy, active transportation, tree canopy, recycling, the whole gamut. Got vetted, and Hannah did all the heavy lifting on that. I mean, she just did an extraordinary job of going to department to get that buy-in. Very quietly for months and months and months was working on it, and it made it really hard at that point for the council, any of the skeptics on the council, to vote against it, because the department heads were saying, we're fine with this, you know, we agree with these goals. So it wasn't it didn't turn into an ugly bloodbath. So I don't know, you know, you probably have questions about all that, but that's kind of the, you know, the citizens committee continues to function, and we continue to have monthly meetings. Rachel Whipple on the council has joined me in those monthly meetings, just to have another set of eyes from the council on it. Frankly, the deputy mayor was not, I mean, it's been a long education for him. He was not, maybe he was very transparent about it. He said, I just don't understand what the big deal is about sustainability. I'm a little skeptical, but you know, you guys can educate me. And so we, you know, tried to give him homework all the time and tell him to read this, that, and the other. And then he started to listen more attentively at, you know, different meetings, ULCT and others, and sort of decided, oh, okay, he had some sort of come to Jesus moment at some conference he was attending, and he told Don and me that he sort of gets it now. I mean, I wouldn't say he's the greenest guy around, but he's not throwing up as much resistance as he used to. And he did enough of that there were occasions where I would sort of appeal directly to the mayor, or Don Jarvis would, and she because she was just delegating. She really wasn't we always wanted her to be there in person, and she just wasn't very often. So that was a little frustrating and worrisome to me early on, that we were going to just be stonewalled by a bureaucrat who didn't get it and thought he was protecting the mayor. And I kept thinking, if I could talk to the mayor directly about this, I'm pretty sure I could get her to come around to understanding something. But she's a trail runner. She's a big believer in the natural amenities of Provo and the whole valley, and has stuck her neck out for Utah Lake and other things. So she's been very helpful. She's just a little cautious, so she doesn't relish the chance to be a maverick by any means. But when we talk to her and explain things to her, she responds really well.
It's a really impressive plan. Thanks for sharing it. I hadn't read it before. I was curious about your 8 things you're trying to measure. I really love on page 17 that you have really clear targets, a 2030 target, 2050 target. You have KPIs for each of these. And it sounds like there is a reasonable amount of buy-in on it.
Yeah,
which is great. And I just think having a person on the city staff who owns it in a way and is in charge of supporting deliverables there, I think is a real key. So that's marvelous. Sarah, George, you know Sarah, right?
yes.
Sarah Bateman.
Yeah. Hi, Sarah.
The other member of our committee who's not here is Hillary Hungerford. She is an environmental geographer at UVU as well.
And we also have a member of the city council often attends with us, or has in the past, but she looks like Debbie's not able to make it again today.
Debbie LeRae is our city councilor that is assigned to our committee, and she's been an active supporter of what we've been trying to do. So Sarah, Paul, there are any specific questions you have for George?
I think the plan looks great, George, and I had seen it before, and yeah, you guys have done amazing work here. One of my main questions, and you were kind of starting to hit on this at the end, wasn't about the plan itself or the timeline, but what kinds of things do you say to people that help them buy into this, right? Because you've talked about meeting resistance, and you did start to talk about, well, we talk about with Mayor Kafusi, we talk about active outdoor kinds of things, but what other kinds of things do you say to people to help them become persuaded that this is a good idea?
That's a great question. I mean, it's varied, depending on the context and the audience. I think one of the reasons why we renamed it to conservation and resiliency was precisely because sustainability is not some people's favorite word. Part of me feels like that's really less of an issue than it might seem to be. And you and I have talked a lot about this with regard to the term climate change or global warming as well. It's like, I think I have not hit that super hard, but I haven't been afraid to use those terms. I mean, because when we got to the energy discussion, I just felt like I can't dance around this, and I'm not going to pretend that carbon footprinting or carbon emissions aren't the issue. They are the issue. And so and I think there are a couple of council members who are not super convinced that climate change is a big deal. But I don't know if it was partly because our energy board is so supportive of this stuff. And that actually is sort of a longer history too. I mean, back when Mayor Curtis was mayor, Don Jarvis and I got very alarmed by the fact that the citizens board for the energy department was chaired by a former dean of engineering at BYU who was a coal guy, and he was anti-climate change, anti-clean renewable energy, and feeding a lot of climate skepticism to that board. And we actually asked for permission to bring some climate scientists in and talk to the board. And to their credit, they said, sure, and we started having that discussion. But Don appealed directly to the mayor, as did I, and said, this is not good for the city of Provo. And he's like, yeah, you're kind of right. And so over the next couple of years, he kind of phased out some of these. Were very elderly people also. I mean, they had been involved with city politics for decades. And so it was a little bit, challenging, but it was also time, so when the time came, or when the opportunities arose to replace somebody on that board, he consistently started picking people, and Don probably was more involved in that than I'm aware, but just making recommendations to the mayor. And suddenly we had this very green board, and the energy department head himself is not 100% sold on all the climate stuff, but he's way into electrifying everything and way into clean and renewable energy. So we haven't had to have that head-to-head about, what do you think of the IPCC, or what do you think about Al Gore, or that sort of stuff. It's just all been about, now this is smart for the city. And we have a huge advantage in that we have a close partnership with Utah Municipal Power Agency, which is a publicly owned agency. And the director of that agency is from Provo. And he's tight with me and Don, and has been listening to us for quite a long time. And he just said, I'm all in, wherever Provo wants to go in this, you guys can lead, and it will help dictate what I do in my agency, because you guys are, we're well over 50% of the energy use of the whole agency. So as we go, the agency goes. So those two people, the energy board, energy department director, and the executive director of UMPA, have been important allies there. So I think that's a long way of saying, from their point of view, they did care about climate, but they also saw that, everything was happening at the right time, right? The prices were dropping dramatically for solar. So the next thing we knew, UMPA built a solar farm down in Mona for 80 megawatts of energy, which is like 25% of Provo. And, and we've got more in the works. They're now, we have 100% goal by 2050. And the only concern they have is about baseload and how we're going to assure that. But there's a lot of confidence that we'll get there. So it's partly a function of certain people getting out of the way, but like I say, on the council, there was some wrestling over, it was mostly about verbiage, it was just, we had to strike every use of the word equity out of everything, which I just thought was silly, but we did. We put in fairness every time the word equity showed up, because it just set off alarms. It was just like, this looked like a Marxist takeover of Provo City. And we probably benefited too from people just not paying a lot of attention, to be honest. I mean, I think initially there was a panic over the general plan for the reasons that I mentioned. But then once the general plan passed, everything else was sort of easy to do. That there was very little drama over the resiliency plan, because we had already passed the general plan. And the general plan has a lot of environmental language in it. It just, it's carefully crafted, but it talks about, how we're going to, why and how we're going to try to grow in a smart way. And so there's already language in there about active transportation and all the rest. So.
Thank you.
Can I ask about your citizen committee, since you were on it and then you've been sitting on it as a counselor? What do you think they do well that perhaps we could learn from? One of the things that I have sought them out for is the Green Business Awards that you all have. So I chatted a couple of years ago with the person in charge of that and understood from that conversation how you go about that. We have since been giving out awards as well. We don't have quite as detailed of a matrix as Provo does, but we have been giving out annual awards to businesses and individuals that we see as role models there. And so that's one of the things that we learned from Provo that we've started to implement. I'm just wondering if you have other things that you think from a citizen committee perspective, we could take away and learn from that you've seen work.
Yeah, I'd say a few things. One is that committee was always the easiest one to, get more people involved, because you can get formally appointed to it by a letter from the mayor, but you can just show up. So anytime anyone with environmental interests heard about us, we would just say, come to our meetings, so back when we first started, it was like 3 of us, then it was 5 of us, and then it was 7 of us, and I don't know what the numbers look like these days, but the consultants told us, and they actually put this in writing somewhere. I can't remember. Maybe it's in this report that I'm sharing with you. I can't remember if it is, but they said that they thought Provo City had a sustainability committee that would be the envy of any city, that there were more experts on our committee than most cities have. And it just happened organically. It was just by virtue of kind of grassroots communication and taking advantage, as you're doing with Paul and the other person you mentioned, who have academic training. So we had somebody who had academic training in green architecture. We've got a water person. We've got several botanists and ecologists, and so it's just been great. We've been able to rely on their expertise. So that committee just is dynamic and grows all the time, and it seems like we get a lot of students who come and go on that committee. They're shorter term, but they're very passionate. And it's, again, if like every time a student would come to me and say, how do I get involved in Provo? I was like, go to this meeting. It's the easiest entry point you can get, because then at some point, Don will ask the mayor to make an official letter and appoint this person. And there's no limit to the number. So we just keep moving people through it. And some people have been there for a very long time. We also have Don. Don is retired. This is his life. He gives, I don't know how many hours a week to it, but it's pretty amazing. And he jokes, that he only charges $1. So he's not costing the city a penny, and he's been donating hours and hours and hours of his life to it. The other thing is that Don makes an annual presentation with a prepared packet to the council and the mayor. And so every year we get a report about what they're doing, what they have been working on, what project. And so that it turns out they do a lot of stuff without us even knowing, and because not all of what they do pertains directly to policy or to recommendations for policy, but through Don, every time there is a recommendation about policy, we get it, without waiting for that annual report. So that's the other thing, is that monthly meeting has been pretty crucial to keep those lines of communication open. And it actually is it is the only opportunity for the administration and the council, at least, 2 people from each, to talk to each other about these issues. And just doing that every single month has sort of helped build a sense of shared responsibility that was not at all there at the beginning. So those are, you could talk to Don, and you could look at their annual report, and maybe you've already got like enough communication with him that you're getting information about all their different projects. But I think they've just become a very well-respected body. And when the consultants said that about them, Don just underscored that in spades for the council and the mayor to say, look, you've got a great resource here. And so they are looked at with a great deal of respect.
That's helpful. I think we've maybe just got a couple minutes left before we need to move to different topics. Paul, Sarah, anything you want from this conversation?
Well, George, that was a great summary. Thank you so much. One thing that kind of stood out to me a little bit, and I just kind of want to follow up on, I look at Provo when I'm down there, and I think I see a lot more bike infrastructure than Orem has. Would you chalk that up to mostly the city engineer and the engineering side of things, or would you chalk that up to something else?
I would not chalk it up to the engineer. I mean, the engineer that I alluded to he's only been in his position for the last 2 years, I think. All of that infrastructure happened almost despite the city engineer, and it happened because of Aaron Scabland and the Bike Walk Provo citizen group in Provo. Those guys are, also tireless, also constantly talking to the mayor, talking to the council, coming to council meetings, making their appeal directly to the engineer whenever there's a specific question about a street corner or whatever. They're probably our most active activists on any topic in the city, and they're really good at it. Some of them have been less diplomatic than others, and sometimes that's created a backlash or retrenchment of different kinds, but on the whole, they've been extremely effective, especially when they've led with women. To be honest, they've had a lot of young mothers with young kids who've been the presidents of that organization, and so when they present their case as a mom who wants to commute with their kids to school and to the grocery store or whatever, it's incredibly persuasive, and it's hard for people, even this council members who are the most resistant to everything related to biking, and we have a couple who are, they respect that, that feels more, it doesn't make them worry, I guess. It makes them feel like, oh, I want to protect people's safety. I mean, that's still a constant battle, to be honest, from citizens and internally in the city. It's never a settled thing. I just keep trying to tell people, every time you see someone on a bike, just think that could be another car. Isn't that nice that someone you don't have to make that decision. That's okay. You don't have to be a biker, but you should be really glad someone else is, and you should want more people to do it, because it'll make you able to travel more safely and quickly across the city. So it's in your interest to promote this. That seems like a no-brainer, but goodness, it's so hard to get through to people on that. But yeah, those people are fabulous. I mean, and Aaron, Quinn and Darren know him quite well, but he's amazing. He knows every street, he knows every desired bike path, and he was constantly proposing to the city, this is where bike lanes should go, this is where a bike path should go. So I think we owe a lot to him and to his group.
I'd like to borrow him a little bit.
Yeah.
To have him be part of our tour to Orem and get his reactions as we navigate our city. That's really, really helpful. Sarah, anything before we let George go? I know that you're on the road.
Yeah, just a quick amen to the passion of these volunteers. When I reached out to Don years ago and started attending Provo's committee meetings, how they had it done, I was really impressed that they had so many people show up at like 7 o'clock in the morning. So it's just, again, a testament to the power of passionate citizens and volunteers that lend their expertise and their devotion to the cause. So
yeah,
thank you, George, for coming.
You bet.
Yeah, thank you very much. We'll let you go. But
okay.
That was very informative, and if it's all right, we'll reserve the right to follow up with you on some of these issues as we
Absolutely.
continue to build out our plans as well.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. You bet. We'll see you.
Thanks, George.
You bet. See you in the morning.
See you in the morning.
All right. That was cool. Darren, let's talk about your parade of Xeriscapes. This anything we need to arrange. I saw Matt's map. I saw that even though I sent an email that it was missing a number, that somebody beat me to it. So we're good on that. Michaela, I saw that Matt wanted us to pick up the flyers and bring them with us. You know where they are, and maybe we can make a plan for how to get those.
Oh, just a second. Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Good.
Okay, sweet. I will figure this out. They are sitting on my desk. So if someone could swing by the city tomorrow, we're open from 8 to 5 to grab those. That would work wonderfully.
I can probably do that.
Sweet.
Thank you, Sarah.
Yeah, I'll just
But
keep them.
I'm on the road right now. Can somebody like text me or send me an email in case I forget?
I'll probably remember. I can coordinate with you, Sarah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so I won't be here tomorrow, but I'll just have them on my desk with a sticky note that says natural resources on it, and whoever's here, just tell them it's on my desk. And they'll grab
Where
them
is your
for you.
desk, Michaela? Is it
It's
behind
just-
the class?
Yeah, it's right by the conference room we're usually in.
And who do you think will be there tomorrow?
Tamra, Shalina, or Lori. Depends on when you get here, but
Okay.
Unfortunately, I'm traveling until tomorrow evening, and so I will not be able to pick them up tomorrow during normal hours. So thank you, Sarah, for doing that.
Sounds like we also need donuts per Matt's emails. Somebody needs to pick up the donuts and he will reimburse us for those. I mean, I guess I could pick up donuts.
Where were you going to get them, Darren?
I don't know. See, I'm not a donuts person, so I always go to Macy's because I like Macy's donuts when I've had them before.
Yeah, I mean Harmon's is pretty close to Cascade Park. That would
Maybe
be
I'll go
another
to
option.
Harmon's. Harmon's Donuts. Okay. I can go to Harmon's easily. I can go Smith's. That's very close as well. I just know I'm sure Harmon's has high quality stuff. So I can go Harmon's and get the donuts tomorrow.
What is your estimate, Darren, of how many we need?
Legions. I have no idea. What would I buy? 4 dozen. Does that sound reasonable?
That might be a good start. And then if you want, myself or one of us can be on call. If for some reason we have more people than we're anticipating, we can just run over and grab some more in the first 20 minutes.
Yeah, true.
So maybe that sounds safe. Would you walk us through how you anticipate this kicking off and what support you might want with it, other than the distributing maps?
I anticipate, I don't know, I have thought that this would be a fairly simple thing, that I would simply announce what we're doing and hand out the maps and invite people to visit them as they're able. Maybe explain a little bit about, all these people have kindly said that we could visit their house, but they're not necessarily going to be out there or available for a conversation. But yeah,
Did
Just-
we talk about seeing if any of the homeowners would be interested in meeting us at the park and just kind of doing a little teaser or like a little information about what they can expect or
I
I don't
can
know.
I can send them a text to remind them and see if they would like to attend. And if any are in attendance, I could certainly
Yeah.
you know, ask them to say, why did you do this? And so, yeah,
Darren, is your home on the map?
it is. So I could say something myself.
Yeah, maybe you could talk a little bit about your journey of how you decided to do it, and what choices you made in the process, and I think that would be useful.
Sure. Yeah.
Do we have any expertise around indigenous vegetation that we could share? One of the things that I heard when I was handing out flyers at the Harvest Festival is that a couple of people really wanted to know, how do I know what to plant? What would be good, and what resources do I have there?
Yeah.
If you want, I can bring my one book on this that I have that I purchased for this purpose. I think I mentioned it before. It's called Lawn Gone, and it gives you a bunch of ideas of what to do in place of your lawn, and I can kind of pass that around. But I'm wondering if we had an ability to share resources with people at all.
One of the
I believe-
appendices in the
Yeah.
city code gives a list of plants. But there's also a nursery that I know about from my personal life up in Salt Lake that does Xeriscape-esque local plants meant for this purpose, that I can figure out its name if you want to know that.
It would be great if you could share that with us.
And the Central Utah Water Conservancy District, they reached out or they made a comment, I think, on one of the social media posts that they recommended if, you know, we wanted to tell people about classes that they offer that incorporate, you know, xeriscaping, local scaping. That's also another plant resource for what they've done a lot of in Utah.
Right. So Sarah, I take it you're planning on being there, and Quinn, I take it you're planning on being there. So I will just ask you guys to say something. My own resource is High Country Gardens, which is that sells, it's a wonderful distributor of plants online, and you can they've got all kinds of water-wise ideas for the Western United States of plants and so forth. So I can share them, talk about that website.
I think that sounds great. Are you anticipating, I think it's 10 a.m., right, Darren?
10 a.m. Yeah.
So are you anticipating that we keep people there until maybe 10:30 to get them to know each other and to share some of this information and to eat donuts together and then break?
I was thinking less time than that. I don't think that we have too much to say. I mean, everybody's talking about, and you know, people will probably be there later than I expect, and they might have questions or comments along these lines. So 10:30 is probably more reasonable. I thought it would be shorter, but I'm always estimating on the short end. So yeah, I just think it'll take as long as it takes, but yeah, 10:30 is a good guess.
Okay. And on your map, do you have any standout properties where you really think we need to go see them, or are they all equally interesting to you?
Yeah, I don't think I would recommend one above another.
Okay.
I think it's just, yeah, I think it would be relatively random.
Okay. Sounds like we are ready. We have a plan.
Yeah.
Sorry, I know that there have been comments online wondering if they can't attend in person, they would still like to be able to, see where these examples are. I know, Darren, you wanted to protect the privacy of these individuals. Is that something that we might go back or ask, present to the homeowners and say, look, there's interest there, but not everybody can make it at the event. If you're comfortable, no pressure at all. But if you're like, yeah, tell everybody, I'm really proud of what I've done and have them stop by. Or if it's like, you know what, this one-time thing works for me, but perhaps not all the time.
Yeah, I am planning on seeing how it goes, and I presume everything will go swimmingly. And then, yeah, I can get back in touch with them and say,
Okay.
could we do more? Could we put your, can we put your, address on the list? We can post online or something like that.
I was thinking of maybe taking some video footage with their permission, and maybe putting together kind of like a 30-second potential social media video that we can use either after this event and or in the springtime as people are planning their gardens and just showing, hey, look, this is something that we did, this is something that your neighbors are doing, but having kind of a visual to report back on.
Yeah, wow, that sounds exciting. Yeah, love that kind of idea.
It's a great idea. Paul, did you say you were going to be there?
Yeah, I'm planning on being there. Do we have a feel for who might be riding bikes and whether we're gonna kind of ride bikes together or anything like that? Do we have a plan for that?
I was thinking I'd ride my bike. I mean, it should be a nice day.
It should be beautiful. I think it's gonna be. I think it's gonna be stunning weather.
Yeah.
I have ridden my bike around this route like 6 times, so I probably won't be there with my bike. But I certainly but I'm hoping that some people will show up with bikes. I don't have any way to judge that though, Paul.
Okay. Yeah,
I would definitely do it with you if I don't know, maybe I will show up with my bike. It's wonderful. I'm like, oh, I'm tired of it. I'm not, but yeah, so maybe I'll be there with my bike. It's a great idea.
Yeah, and I mean, if you're bringing the donuts too, that makes sense.
Oh yeah, I can't bring.
Yeah, and whoever is on, emergency donut run duty also probably needs to not just have a bike. But
good point.
I was just wondering.
Yeah. Maybe I'll bring a car and be on emergency donut run duty. If I'm bringing my family, I might have more luck if I bring them in a car. But otherwise, it's a great idea.
But it's a wonder. I mean, it's lovely. They just have to cross Center Street. That's the only issue, but it's not that hard to cross Center Street, especially at the light on 8th East. Hey, I need to run. I have another meeting at 6. I'm sorry. Can I just say, I know that Utah Lake, something about Utah Lake was on the agenda, but can I just draw attention to the email I sent that they have the final draft of the management plan available? My quick review of the management plan is that they have made some adjustments that we suggested. I don't know if any of you helped suggest those, but if you did, thank you, because they got the message. And I don't have anything to add to my email, but I wouldn't, this is a big deal. This is a big deal, this management plan for the lake. And I just want to draw it to our attention and have people look it over. And if we have a concern, we could sort of let each other know that concern. But otherwise, I think we should send them a little bit of appreciation for increasing the extent to which they are emphasizing ecological resources there.
And Darren, is this something that we should just give the feedback directly to the and authority, or is this
I think
something that we want to do some sort of recommendation to the city council with?
I think so. Last time I had more concerns, and we did something more formal, and I reached out to the city council and I reached out to other members of the Utah Lake Committee, but this time I don't have any concerns, so at least not yet. So I think we're okay just sort of filling out whatever form they have online and giving the feedback directly to the authority. Does that sound okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also looked at it, Darren. Thank you for flagging it. And I do feel like the language was a little bit more in line with some of our concerns. Same big buckets, right? But I felt a little bit better about it as well. Hillary wanted us to note the Utah Lake Symposium that's coming up. Does anyone know when that is?
So I'm sorry, I'm
The
gonna drop
17th.
off, guys. Thanks. Sorry.
17th.
It's on the 17th at UVU.
17th at UVU. Same idea as the one last time around. Sarah.
I mean, there are sessions throughout the day. I think this one was a particular focus on. I can't remember if it was the June sucker or the carp removal, either adding more of one fish or removing another kind of fish. But yeah, I haven't taken a closer look at the agenda. There's an Eventbrite out there that has the agenda, the breakdown throughout the day. But
Okay. All right, that's great. I will not be there, unfortunately. I would love to hear about it.
I'm going to try to attend as much as I can.
Yeah, and I think I can probably go to part of it. That's my heavy teaching day, but hopefully I can get to at least a little bit of it.
I think we can wrap up pretty quickly here. I did promise we'd debrief on the Harvest Festival. My main feedback there was I felt like the city had our back on that. They created incentives for people to come visit us, that we were busy the entire time, that it gave us some visibility, and we should keep doing that. I thought that was great.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, it was fun.
Thanks for that, Quinn. I think your game worked really well, Sarah, as well. I thought that was fun. The kids liked it.
Good. And I think that the tag teaming, keeping the kids busy with something, and then having a chat with people while they're standing in line with the adults, trying to have a diverse range of engagement opportunities for our audience members. That's good.
Yeah, I agree. I will say it would not have worked without your game. I mean, people, those kids, it was a lovely game, but and I think they really enjoyed playing it. But I was amazed at how simple it was, and yet how much people would stand in line to do it.
Well, I think some of it is like, this is an event where people are standing in line. There's something. They may not know what it is. They know there's candy there if they stand in this line. So I don't know if they were necessarily knew what they were getting into, but I think it was just kind of like, okay, we stand in line, we do a thing, and we get sugar. And so, okay.
Yeah, and like Quinn pointed out, that the fact that we were a yellow sticker booth was huge.
Absolutely.
They also were thinking they had to stand in line and play the game to get the yellow sticker.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I was pleased that we had the support of the city on that part of it. So Sarah, again, it wouldn't have worked really without what you did there, and everybody made a really good contribution. We saw a different segment of the city than we usually see at city council meetings, for example.
Mhm.
And Jeff, I don't know if you saw, Jeff Lamson came over and I chatted with him for a while. He was congratulating us on what we were doing. He indicated an interest in getting back in touch with us and trying to spend time with our committee, which was great.
Great.
I just for the record, I'm really happy with the way that Matt and Michaela are supporting us. Grateful for the effort they're putting in, right? Even in off hours sometimes to try to make us successful. So I just want to say we really appreciate that. We feel like you're investing in our success. So thank you.
Yeah, Matt did a great job getting those banners printed and mounted and all kinds of stuff, and then got us the candy, and yeah, that was really, really helpful.
And I think we're going to get signage, like more official signage next time. So I don't see any reason why we can't be running a booth a few times a year and figuring out what flyers we want to hand out, what messages we want to craft, and just become a known quantity for the city and for people who go to these kinds of things.
Yeah. We can make the Earth Day booth better than we have in the past, right? And we could do the Harvest Festival and maybe one of the farmers market weeks or something like that.
And maybe Summerfest.
Yeah. Possibly.
Yeah. Okay. Well, anything else on that topic?
No, I just wanted to see if anybody had an experience or an idea that, like, oh, if we had done that, that would have made it even better, or if we'd had this or something like that. But we can brainstorm and talk about that as we prepare for the next event too.
I guess go ahead, Sarah.
Go ahead.
Well, one reflection is we had that cool poster with the question of what do you do outside, and what was there's a follow-up question, right? It was
what could make it better?
Make it better. And I think that we could use that poster again. I think it's a powerful question. We didn't really have the opportunity to ask it because we had other things going on.
Yeah.
But I really liked the fact that we had an event to tell people about. It made us relevant. It was educational. People liked that idea. The Xeriscaping tour more than I thought they would, right? They kind of resonated with it. So having something like that, whether it be a hike or a tour or a resource or rain barrels or whatever it is that we're contributing to their understanding of the world, and makes it feel like they're getting something out of the experience. I think that's important.
Agreed.
It's also fun to work with you all. It's a great team.
It's a party.
Yeah, I think we had a good time, and it was great that everybody could participate. That was fun.
Sorry we missed you on that picture, Paul.
No, it's okay. My boys were done, and we had to had to bail.
Too much fun.
And Sarah,
exactly. Too much sugar.
I would say that we could follow your lead a little bit more and either wear our t-shirts, or we could, now that our committee has evolved a bit, we could even maybe make new t-shirts and maybe make more than 5 so that we can give them out to allies or other people a little bit. But I'm wondering if there's another opportunity to brand with t-shirts and have a little bit more of a uniform sometimes. Just putting that in as an idea out there, if it triggers any ideas for you.
Yeah, I was thinking that. I know that we were in the middle of rebranding our logo, and now that that's been approved, that can give us an opportunity to, yeah, get some shirts.
Okay. The only other real thing on our agenda was Orem transport plan. Is there anything urgent there, or is that something we can move to our agenda next month? Let's move it to our agenda next month, if that's okay. And then we have a minute approval opportunity. If you haven't seen the minutes yet, take a look at them. Again, I think, Michaela, that you do a really nice job with them. I am fine with approving these and would so move.
I would second. I thought they looked great.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, minutes are approved. We will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll move to adjourn.
I will second. Thank you. We barely have a quorum. Sarah, thanks for hanging on to the end. All in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, have a good evening. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Michaela, for making this happen. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
No problem. Sarah, just as a reminder, in case Darren doesn't remind you, the papers are on my desk.
Okay, perfect. Thanks, Michaela.
Yep, no problem.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.
Bye.